Wait. So anytime someone said buy the template, you were manually going in and emailing it specifically to that person?
For the first couple months, yes.
Whew, Nick. What people and businesses should have an app, and when is the right time to execute on it?
Probably more established brands, unless you have a lot of capital backing.
What are 3 key takeaways that we can leverage in our own app store?
So 1, we had the reputation. 2, social proof. 3, again, probably goes back to the word of mouth.
Today, we are joined by author, podcaster, weightlifting expert, entrepreneur. Excited to get into it. Nick Shaw, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks so much for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Listen, Nick, I want to kind of go back in time a little bit, because right now you've got your company, Renaissance Periodization, blowing up. You've got your fitness coaching or diet coaching app. 10 years ago, would you ever have expected yourself to be where you're at today?
Never in a million years.
So how did it happen?
We loved what we were doing. We loved fitness. We loved helping people. It started really organically. We were personal trainers in New York City. Quickly evolved from there. I sort of realized that, hey, my time is not very well spent traveling all over New York City. So I said, well, how can I maybe get around this? Got into online coaching. That was much more scalable, and said, well, this is pretty cool. Then we got into selling digital products, and we thought, well, hey, this is even cooler. And that sort of gradually morphed over time to how do you take one-on-one coaching? How do you make it more scalable? And that's when we created our digital products. And it was kind of like an avalanche that just really took off, and they worked and people liked them. They got really good results, and that was it.
So you really started out getting your expertise in that one-on-one fitness coaching with clients, right? Is I'm hearing you right?
Yeah, I mean, my background's in sports and lifting. I mean, I met the co-founder of RP with me. We met at the University of Michigan weight room, at school. So perfect.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's one of the best things to do is work in the same industry that you love and you're passionate about. And obviously, if you're good at it, that helps, right?
100%.
The biggest challenge, I think, with gyms and this personal training is it's not scalable, right? You only have 24 hours in a day, assuming that you're going to sleep. You're probably getting 18 hours a day of potential time. Then that's not to, listen, you only have so many hours a day. So was there a particular point in time where you said to yourself, listen, I got school, I got family, I want to take this to the next level. And how did you make that jump?
Yeah. So again, we got into online coaching, and all of a sudden I was like, hey, I can work with, a handful of 3, 4, 5 people in 1 hour versus, having to hop on the subway, go downtown New York City, train people, come back. Like, it's just not efficient at all. And I was like, wow, like this is definitely the future. And I started planning, like I have to transition out of the in-person part, which I enjoyed the in-person part, of course, but it's just like, boy, this isn't like, you can't really make a career out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, you would really have to grind, like you said, round the clock to be successful as a personal trainer, especially in New York City. And I was like, I just don't want to do that. So again, that was the start of the transition. We got into the online, started producing content. People started to, notice us a little bit. And then when we started doing the digital products, it was just like this other light bulb went off as, hey, like this is the real future. This is what we need to do.
So I want to back it up a little bit. So you mentioned that you decided I'm going to shift to online coaching, right? From in-person, which is not scalable, to online coaching, which is much more scalable. What year was this? And how did you what do you mean by online coaching? Are you just doing like Zoom calls, kind of like what we're doing now? Are you creating YouTube content? What did that look like?
I'm not even sure Zoom existed back then. This was like 2012.
Okay.
Instagram was barely a thing. So we were definitely on the forefront of it, and it's nothing like it is today, which, everyone's an online coach in the fitness world, which is good and bad, of course.
Yeah.
But it was really just, we would write literally Excel files with the information in there, and we would email them to people. We would communicate by email, sometimes phone, or on social media like Facebook, and we would take that, we would make the changes. The cool part was people would get really good results. They loved it. Then they would take a before and after picture, right? And like that was the really cool part. They would post that on Facebook, and their friends and family would see it, and they'd go, whoa, like what's going on here? Tell me more. And so we would get a lot of word of mouth referrals, and we started putting those on Facebook. We had our own pages, of course, and then we started putting them on Instagram, and it's morphed into something pretty wild. I mean, we have a dedicated page on Instagram just to before and after pictures of our clients. it's got like 130,000 followers. The main page has, well over 500. I mean, it's got like 4,000 or 5,000 different posts. It's pretty crazy now.
That's amazing. And I think you hit on some magic there. That secret sauce is testimonials and word of mouth. Like if you can get that going, but that's a difficult thing to have happen, especially when you're sending people an Excel spreadsheet. Did I hear you right? You're just sending people an Excel spreadsheet and they're executing on it. How did you actually get people motivated to do that? Because typically when I see an Excel spreadsheet, my eyes gloss over.
Yeah, well, that's a really good question. So we started in a small niche of people that were already a little bit more hardcore into fitness
Okay.
that wanted to kind of take it from where they were to the next level.
So because you already had kind of like an in with the crowd, you were already part of the community?
Yeah, it was our background. So again, like we already had that social proof of, hey, like we do this ourselves.
Yeah.
And again, it was starting with close friends and families, get them results. And then we started to slowly branch out from there into more and more people. That kind of the octopus tentacles kind of slowly started to grow and spread over time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really important thing that everyone kind of understands is start building your personal brand today. I was just talking before this interview, I was just talking with one of my virtual assistants who was kind of onboarding. I'm trying to help him. He doesn't have a LinkedIn profile yet. And he's like, I want to build my presence. I'm like, listen, if you want to work for people, if you want to actually get jobs in the future, you have to build your online presence in your personal brand. I think it's super important. And I'm kind of curious, Nick, you mentioned that this was all starting to come to life in 2012. We're in 2021 now, right? Things are a lot different now. What would you do today if I said, hey, Nick, you got to take it from zero to hero? How would you actually get it out there? Where would you start?
Boy,
it's a lot.
It's tough because you learn so much over time. It is hard to go from 0 to 100.
Well, like you said, there's a lot more competition out there. So like, what are some ways we can stand out on these social platforms? They're getting inundated.
Yeah. So again, I think our key differentiator was that, all of our coaches are PhDs or registered dietitians, and they also, compete in sports themselves. So again, when you combine you could walk the walk and talk the talk. You have the academics and you have the athletics background. That's really the key thing that stands out for us because not everyone has that. You can go online. I'm sure you've seen this too. Think about all the people that are saying they're business coaches and you're like, okay, well, like, how's your business? And they're like, well, you don't ask about that. Like, no, I'm a business coach. Just trust me. And you're like, wait a second. Yeah. And again, like that's what we see now because it has become so successful. And now, especially because of 2020, everyone's online. Everyone has to be online. So now I think we're going to see that grow even more. So it would be really hard, I think, now. And again, I think you have to fundamentally, you have to start with a good product. You have to treat people well. And it'll slowly grow over time. You just can't expect to go from 0 to 100 overnight because that literally doesn't happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think you hit on one of the key things here is find a way to differentiate yourself. Yep. And certainly authority is a big way to do that. If you've got, like you said, PhDs and people that are living and breathing it, that's a big deal. It reminds me of something that Joe Rogan said on his podcast the other day. He's like, I'm going to go get advice from a 20-year-old life coach who is overweight. And like, I don't know if that's the life I understand. I also, about a year ago, I was interviewing Sean Garner, who's been featured in Men's Health. He's kind of a big deal down here in South Florida. And when he was opening up one of his gyms, there was a gentleman who came into the gym and looked at him and said, hey, I'd love to sign my son up for a membership here, but I don't want him to look like you, know? So that's a big deal. You gotta live and breathe what you do,
For sure. It helps. It builds that credibility. Like you said, authority is a big one. Again, social proof. Again, like if you can prove that you have results, again, you may not have a lot of results when you're first starting out, but that's okay. Just focus on the things that you do well. And again, treat people well, have a good product that works. You can prove that you can get people results and it's going to build over time. Now, again, it's not going to be super fast, but you start with a couple of people, all of a sudden you get up to 5 to 10, keep growing that. It grows to 15, 20. Like that's just how it works.
Yeah. Patience. Keep giving that value. And of course, we're talking to Nick Shaw here from Renaissance Periodization.com. And Nick, I kind of want to back it up a little bit because there was something that you had said that I think is really interesting and important. This is kind of like the crux of the whole conversation. I was working a business model, the one-on-one coaching that just wasn't sustainable. Okay. So I decided to start creating these digital products. I think one of the keys to a successful business is filling in the need or filling in the vacuum. But one of the traps that we can get caught in as entrepreneurs is that same mindset. I want to scale. I want to make more money. So I'm just going to start doing it. how did you how do you differentiate between my personal needs, scaling my business, and the needs of the marketplace? And was it just kind of like a magic fit for you, or how do you balance that?
So with one-on-one coaching, especially with something like personal training in person, it's pretty expensive. Even online coaching, if you hire someone to coach you with your diet or training, whatever it is, it's pretty expensive. It's a couple $100s a month usually. And so we were like, all right, well, this ebook that we did, costs 20, $30. A lot of people can do that, but people don't want to do it everything themselves, right? Like we can go read all the books in the world, but still, yeah, I like the analogy that, I could go read a book on how an engine works, right? It's
Yeah.
going to take me a really long time though, and then I still have to figure it out, and I might mess up. Or I can just go down the street to the mechanic, and he's going to fix it in like an hour, and I'm good to go. So again, that's the part that people want. Like, you can tell them what to do, of course, through a book, but at the end of the day, people just want something laid out very simple and easy to follow. And that's what we did when we created the first diet templates. Is now we had a program that instead of $600 over 3 months, let's say, people could come and buy this for $100 and get very similar results. And it's like, it was mind blowing to people. And they're like, oh, okay, well, like I actually don't need a coach because, well, maybe I had a coach at one time where I can't afford a coach. Not everyone can afford that. And so you get this, it's a lot cheaper, and boom, there you go. You're good to go. So it's pretty natural fit for us.
Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds to me like it's delivering clarity and delivering time, which are,
Yeah.
I think, things that all people, especially diets, are so challenging too, because there's a million diets. There's always the hot new diet. What works for someone might not work for you. So I love the idea of this digital products, and it's all focused around dieting, correct?
Yeah. Well, so nutrition. And as soon as we came out with those, people are like, oh, this is great. Like, do you have something like this for training? And we're like, not yet. Wait a
It's
second.
coming.
Yeah, exactly. And then it came, and then it was like these diet templates slowly morphed over time and evolved. We had a couple different iterations of them, and then it eventually led to an app. And now we're basically like a software company, and that we have a diet app. You can get it on Apple and Google, of course. It's RP Diet Coach, and again, like it does everything that these static templates would do and more, because now it's interactive. It's like having GPS versus a paper map. You have a paper map, and you like sit down and you're kind of drawing out where you need to go and everything. But like that's great. That's fine. Some people like that. But you know what? What did that get replaced by, a decade ago? Google Maps, right? And now
Yeah.
like it tells you turn by turn. So that's what the app is doing. It's you're on the right track, but maybe you don't know construction's coming up or there's a detour or something like that. Well, now the app sort of does that. It helps guide you based on your own progress.
Yeah. Well, what I'm hearing you say, Nick, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you listened to the needs of the market and you listened to the needs of the community, which again, it's so easy as creators, as after hours entrepreneurs, that we get so caught up in what our needs are. But if you're not listening, then I don't think you have any shot. You gotta listen to what your community wants and what they need and get that feedback. That's a tough thing too. Constructive criticism can be tough to take and tough to get, But,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
yeah, trust me, people are definitely going to give you their opinion. It's not always going to be constructive, let's just say. So I want to talk a little bit more, Nick, about this app. So why decide to go into this app? I mean, we kind of talked about this a little bit. You were listening to the needs of the market, but like, I'm thinking app development is something that is probably not too simple to do. And the RP Diet Coaching app launched in 2016. So what was your biggest hurdle in getting that app to the market?
The first idea was kicked around in 2016. We didn't actually have a beta version to get out to clients until the end of 2018. So it's a
Wow.
multi-year process, and software development is very, very tricky. So if you're listening, you're like, hey, I want to go into, software development. It's like, okay, well, be warned. It's a long process. It's a slow process. There's going to be lots of bumps and all that stuff along the way, and it's going to cost a lot more than you think. It's a very hard thing to get into, and I think there's a big reason that a lot of technology, and they have tons of capital in the background, right? Because you kind of need that to get going. We were lucky and fortunate enough that we didn't need that. It's all been bootstrapped along the way, which has been great. But it's just with the way technology and everything's going, if we go back to that analogy, the paper map versus GPS, well, what's going to win out in the long term?
Yeah.
Technology is always going to win out because it makes things simpler for people. So again, like we heard all this feedback for years about our static, paper diet templates that people would print out and put on their fridge, which was cool, of course. But like now you have an app, you have it in your hand, it's going anywhere you want. It's going to send you reminders. You can scan in food. It's going to tell you how much of that you need to eat. It's just like, you can't think of anything better.
Yeah, when the RP diet coaching app is really clean. It looks really good. And again, it seems like apps are like the hot new thing. Everyone wants to have their own app. I need to have my own app. What people do you think, what people in businesses should have an app, and when is the right time to execute on it?
Probably more established brands, unless you have a lot
Yeah.
of capital backing. If you don't have the capital backing and you don't have deep pockets, you might really be in trouble because it's not a cheap process. It's not a quick process. I've heard tons of stories. I'd like to think when we were doing it, I kept asking other people. I'm like, is this just us? Is this only happening to us? And everyone's like, no, no, no. Like this is the process. This is how it goes.
So
So
give me an example. I got to get specific. I got to hear about this, right? So like, what's a time where you're thinking like everything's going right, and then all of a sudden the app just, are you serious? Another 25K? Like, give me something.
Sure, I have a really good example. I can't give the exact name, but we hired. This was so we had an initial team, and they basically kind of led us down a path that it was going to cost X amount. And then when it finally came, they're like, oh, actually, it's 7X. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, thank you, but no thank you. And then we hired a team that was more local to where I live. And the project manager left after a few months, just went on sabbatical. And he
Oh,
was the only person that really understood it. And they're trying to farm this out to, third party sources. And the thing was, no one really understood what the app needed to do. And it wasn't until someone in our own community, our own crowd, came to us and was like, hey, I like the templates. Sure, they're great. But I'm a software developer. I'm like, can I help build this? And we're like, okay, yeah, tell us more. And here we are 3 years later, over 3 years later. And, the app's been around for almost 2 years now, I'd say, more officially like a year and a half since we really went public with it.
mhm. Well, and you've got hundreds of thousands of downloads now, which I think is really, really hard for people to say, hey, I'm going to get off Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. I love my TikTok, right? How do you get people off of those apps into actually downloading your app? What are three key takeaways that we can leverage in our own app store?
Sure. Well, so one, we already have the brand reputation because we've been
Ah,
around and we started small. So again, we had that. We weren't starting from scratch. So one, we had the reputation. Two, social proof. People go on social media, they're going to see our results, they know it works, and so they're going to come to us. And then three, again, probably goes back to the word of mouth because we have people using it, they know it works, and they're like, hey, what did you do? Along with that, I suppose we could call it 3B, is it's only $14.99 a month to have your own personal diet coach. That's amazing. If you were to hire a one-on-one coach, it's $200 a month.
yeah.
And again, like you have this tool in your hand at all times that's going to help remind you and show you what to do and tell you what to do. At that price, why are companies like, Amazon and Walmart so successful, right? Well, they make things cheaper over time and then make it easier to get,
Mm.
right? Like you pull up now into Walmart parking lot to bring things out for you, or Amazon, like it literally shows up to your door. And who knows, before too long, it'll probably be inside your door, right? Like who knows? But again, you make it easier for folks to do things. You make it cheaper for folks to do things. If you do those things over time, you're going to do well.
Yeah, especially if you've got the results. I mean, if we're going back through your history, Dick, it seems like social proof, reputation, testimonials, authority, like these are the keys. And I, to your point, these are not things that just happen overnight. Like not everyone is going to be dog face 420 on TikTok. You got to build this up over a long period of time. And, discipline is a very difficult thing to execute on, but it's super important. And I'm kind of curious, how do you think that your discipline through bodybuilding has translated to your discipline in business?
It's perfect. It's a perfect analogy because you don't become overnight a bodybuilder. Even if you
Yeah.
have some of the best genetics in the world, it doesn't happen like that. You have to keep showing up over time, getting a little bit better every single day, right? And you just keep iterating and improving upon yourself. You get a little bit stronger over time. You grow a little bit more muscle over time. You might lose a little bit of fat over time. Like that's how it works. And it's very similar in business. You don't become an overnight success. You keep showing up, you keep putting in the work, and little by little, it's really at the end of the day, it's having the delayed gratification. You can sort of put off the immediate impulses that, hey, because if you think that way, if you only think of sort of the very present time horizon, you're going to make bad choices because you're like, you want to become the celebrity overnight. And it just doesn't happen. But you go, all right, well,
Yeah.
I'm going to bypass that and I'm going to keep building for the future. And I'm going to keep, I'm going to keep doing this slow and steady approach over time. And a year from now, a couple years from now, I'm going to be way up here. Whereas the people that were chasing that instant gratification, they're probably still down here. They're not really getting better, or they might have a little bit of a bump and then they're going to come right back down.
It's so true, and discipline is so hard. Like you said, slow and steady wins the race. Right? We've been hearing this for a long time. Don't be the hare, be the tortoise. It pays off big time. Of course, we're talking here to Nick Shaw from Renaissance Periodization and the creator of the RP Diet Coaching app. Nick, I got to ask you. You've got a successful business. You've got an app. You're a podcaster. Now you're the new author of Fit for Success, which should be available on Amazon by now. Why get into authorship? Why get into writing?
Super simple. One, again, so I've always been very passionate about helping people through fitness. And again, that has a little bit of limitations, right? Because you can help people get healthier, and that's awesome. You can help people reach their fitness goals, awesome. But again, there's more to life than just fitness, right? There is business, there's entrepreneurship, there is overcoming adversity and obstacles. My own personal life, my wife had a bunch of health issues in 2020. We had to deal with all that. And then we had to deal with COVID and homeschool and all this stuff. So it's like, I had a lot more time, and I'd sort of been building these principles in my head of like, what do successful people have in common? And they all tend to have a lot of the same things in common.
Yeah.
And so I started to really like put these things down on paper, just started typing and was like, hey, I'm just going to give this a go. I'm not going anywhere for like 3 or 4 months because we were, pretty heavily quarantined because of my wife's, health issues. And
so you decided to start the book just recently this year in 2020. Is that right?
Yeah, I had a lot of background, reading a couple hundred books over the last few years, of course,
Sure.
as it kind of lay the foundation. But yeah, it was really just one morning I sat down and I was like, hey, I think I'm onto something here. And, I think you have a choice, right? When bad stuff happens, or really anytime anything happens, you have a choice. How do you want to respond to things? You can, throw in the towel and become a victim. I don't like that idea whatsoever. I'm never going to do that. And I was like, well, 2020 can make or break, folks. I'm going to take 2020 and all the bad stuff that's happened, and I'm going to make a lot of good out of it. And so again, like for me, I think that's the cool part that's come out of 2020 is, well, hey, I literally wrote a book, and I think it's going to help a lot of people. So at the end of the day, why the book? It's going to help people. That's it.
I love that. I love that. Provide value, fit for success. And I absolutely love that you took the initiative. I mean, over the course of your career, that's what it's all about. It's get an idea, execute, be disciplined, and keep pushing forward. And those are, like you said, and reading books. These are key common denominators between successful people. I've interviewed some really incredible people on the show, and that is definitely a common denominator.
100%.
You also mentioned, and this is something that I think about a lot, and I think all the after hours entrepreneurs out there are thinking from time to time, is we're creating our side hustles. We want to go full time. We want to create this business, but we don't want to create our own prisons. We don't want to build our own prisons. Like you mentioned, you've got a wife, you've got children. Had that ever been a challenge for you, being both a father and a husband, bodybuilder, and being a business owner? Has that been a challenge?
100%. So in like 2015 and 2016, excuse me, we were really getting close to the burnout area because we were just literally working around the clock, and our kids were pretty young then. Now kids are 8 and 6, so they're a little bit older. They can sort of do some things on their own a little bit. But, a few years ago, whoa, that was a lot different. And yeah, we were really pushing that envelope. And I essentially made the choice that I kind of had to like give up hardcore, serious competitive bodybuilding because that's a full-time job. Running a business is a full-time job. Being a parent is a full-time job. I'm like, I cannot do 3 full-time jobs. I'm like, something has to give. And, bodybuilding was just something that I did sort of recreational. And, it's not like I was competing and winning money or anything like that. Like you actually pay to compete and all that. So I'm like, well, this can sort of become more of just like a hobby. And I'm always going to be into lifting, of course, because it's just part of who I am. But that was kind of the thing that was the more serious, hardcore aspirations. And I was like, okay, this is a little bit more manageable.
I mean, that makes sense because there's only one Nick Shaw, and you certainly can't build an app to raise your kids, at least not yet. I'm sure Bezos is working on something, but that's something I think about a lot because you really don't want to miss those key moments. You can always, do more exercises, or you can always build an app, but you're never going to get your kids' first steps or their first hit at a baseball game. That's definitely something I think about. What about working with your wife? It sounds like your wife also works with you or with your company. Has that been an easier positive thing? Like, because sometimes I think it's nice to have that getaway. Like, this is my space. I'm at work. I could get that kind of that freedom. But at the same time, you also want to spend those quality moments with your spouse as well. What would you say? What are the pros and cons of that?
So it was a lot of born out of necessity early on. It was like RP was really starting to take off. We had just started, the digital products, and we were starting to get things automated. And so it was sort of we were seeing that exponential growth early on. So I was kind of like, and she wasn't really enjoying what she was doing anymore. We had just moved across country from New York down to Charlotte. And I was like, hey, I need you. I'm like, I can't do this myself. I literally, I can't, I need some help, and when you're so early on, right, in that building
Yeah.
the business, it's so hard to like take a step back and sort of take the time to build and recruit and help because you're just like, I mean, we were just up to our eyeballs in work and responding to emails and all that stuff every single day. Whereas like if we took a day off of not doing that, now we're 2 days behind.
Yeah.
And it was really hard to do. And looking back, it was one of the best things that we did because it helped sort of get to that next level. And then when we finally hired in help, where we didn't have to do it all, other people were able to come in. We were able to let them do, customer service so we could focus on other areas. It kept getting bigger. It kept getting bigger. We kept growing. And, I guess you go back to the question, that's probably the number one thing that would stand out to me now. He said, well, what would I do differently now? I would have gotten more help early on so I didn't have to do everything myself. That's probably a real big takeaway there.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's hard because you're bootstrapping. You don't have a ton of income coming in when you're starting your new business. I mean, as side hustlers, we're trying to get there, but the sooner you can start onboarding team members, I have now 4 virtual assistants that are helping with the production of the show. It wouldn't be possible without them. They're amazing. Shout out to the awesome team at the After Hours Entrepreneur. So I want to talk about this just a little bit, Nick, before we get into the rapid fire section. If you were going to give a tip to someone out there that was saying, you know what, Nick's right, I need to offload some of this stuff because I'm going crazy. I'm not sleeping enough. What would be your top tip to someone who was looking for some help? Well, how should we start?
Take the 1 or 2 areas that you're really good at and you're really confident in and focus on those. And then take the other areas, whatever it is, 2, 3, 4, 5 things, and go find somebody, an outside consultant. It doesn't have to be, a full-time employee or even part-time employee. Go find an independent contractor that can come in and help you with the areas that you are struggling in. Use your strengths while you can and apply those. But again, recognize the areas where you're not so good, right? So you kind of got to battle that ego. Okay, well, I'm probably pretty good here, but maybe these couple other areas I'm not so good at. I'm going to go get some help. So I think fairly early on, I did notice that and was like, okay, I don't know a thing about email automation and all this. I'm like, I need some help, and recruited in someone to help us, build some funnels, all that good stuff. And then all of a sudden, because funny story real quick, when we first started selling our diet templates, I was manually sending out every single one.
Wait. So anytime someone said buy the template, you were manually going in and emailing it specifically to that person?
For the first couple months, yes.
Whew, Nick.
This is 2015, man. I didn't know any better. The only thing that I knew, it's a good thing to have at least, was hard work.
Yes. So you identified that this isn't sustainable, and so you went out and you found someone to help you with it, right?
Yep. And then again, like it started getting automated. And then guess what? Like monthly sales started to go like this because everything was automated. I didn't have to waste my time doing all that stuff. And once that happened, that was, life changer for sure.
Yeah, love it. That's something I'm constantly thinking about. What can I either just eliminate completely, or what can I automate, or what can I outsource?
100%.
Yeah. Do you use Zapier? What's your top automation tool that you use?
I'm using Fusionsoft /Keep, which I've never heard anyone that liked using them. So
maybe if nobody likes it, maybe that's the next Nick Shaw adventure, huh?
We'll probably not be using them here in the future, but it's just one of those things, man. You get so deep into it, you have everything built. Boy, it's a real big, it's a real big hurdle to overcome and having to do that. So, trade-offs. It does some good things. It does some not so good things.
Mm-hmm. Well, listen, all you after hours entrepreneurs out here, this is why you listen to the show. This is why you watch the show, because experts like Nick are going to give you the tips, tools, and tactics so you can avoid falling into traps, right? So that you can avoid them, so you can save yourself tons of time, energy, and aggravation. Of course, Nick Shaw, creator of Renaissance Periodization, the RP Diet Coaching app, and you could get his book out now, Fit for Success. So get fit for success. Cool. Nick, rapid fire. You ready? You all strapped in?
Whew. All right, let's do it.
Let's go. Nick, if you woke up and there was only one business task you could do for the day, what would you do?
Social media.
Engaging or creating?
Both.
Okay. If you could only have one item for your business that costs less than $50, what would be that item?
Under $50. Oh man, uh, my book.
Okay. Dig it. And that's fit for success. If you could only have one app on your phone, what app would you have?
I feel like this is a trick question. I gotta say RP Diet Coach app.
Okay. Okay. What is a must-have subscription in your life right now?
Uh, so we use Trifecta Food. It's a meal prep company, so it sort of does a lot of the work for us. Food just shows up, we eat it. It's a time saver.
I like that. I like that. And final question for you. You had 10 seconds with yourself 10 years ago. What would you say?
Drop your ego. That's it.
Nick said it. I agree with it. Nick Shaw, thanks so much.
Thank you for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for watching. I'm glad you enjoyed this episode. I've got several other episodes right here for you. Smash one of these videos to make sure that you don't miss out on the tips, tools, and tactics of industry experts. Let's take that side hustle full time. Smash one of these links.